This is the Friday the 14th of June 2013, the higher paper, the Excel. It's the calculator paper. Question number 1. Here's a cuboid. You can see it there. You're asked to find the surface area. I've underlined surface area because a lot of students calculate the volume because that's the sort of thing you might be expected to do if you see this shape, but it does say surface area. So what you need to do is calculate the area on the surface of the shape. So it's the area on the surface. So the area of the front bit is 6 times 1.5, which is 9. And if you look at it, the front, the top, the back and the bottom are all the same. So I've done 9 times 4 to get 36. The two end bits are 1.5 times 1.5, which is 2.25. There's obviously one this end and one that end, so that's 4.5 centimetres squared. Add it up, you get 40.5 centimetres squared, which is your final answer. Question number 2. Ratios 1 is recipes. This comes up pretty much every year without fail. It's got a star next to it, so you've got to show all of your workings. Here's the ingredients to make 18 mince pies. She wants to make 45 mince pies. You've got to find, does she have enough of each ingredient? But first of all, we're just going to find out how much it would take. Then we'll deal with that bit at the end. To get from 9 to 45, from 18 to 45, what I've noticed, if you half it, you'll go down to 9. Then you can multiply by 5 to get up to 45. So I've done this with each of the ingredients. I'll show you my workings there. I'll just leave that there for a moment. She does not have enough mincemeat because she needs all of this stuff. She only has 700. She needs 700 grams of mincemeat, but she only has 600 grams. So not enough mincemeat, 100 grams short. There's my workings. You do need to set all of that out. If you just write at the bottom, no, not enough mincemeat, you will not get the marks. You need to show exactly why. So set it out like that. Question 3. Scatter graphs. The first bit, plot 2 extra points on. I've circled them so you can see where they are. You don't have to do that in the exam. Just make sure they're clearly done with a nice clear cross. Describe the correlation. Well, it's a negative correlation because it's going down. As the age of the car increases, the value decreases. A car of the same type and make is 2.5 years old. Estimate the value of the car. You get 2 marks for this. 1 mark for the line of best fit, which is roughly there. And you draw up from 2.5, hit the line and go across. And I made that 6,200. You must draw the line of best fit, and you must draw this line going up and across. If you don't do that, you will not get the marks. That's what I've made my own notes at the bottom. There they are. So line of best fit and draw the line on graph to show the estimation. Question 4. Rihanna is playing a game. The probability she'll lose is 0.32. The probability she'll draw is 0.05. She's going to play the game 200 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times Rihanna will win the game. Well, step 1, work out what the probability that she'll win is. You should know the probability adds up to 1. So I've done 1 and I've taken away 0.32 and 0.05 to get that. So to estimate how many times she'll win the game, you multiply the number of times she plays the game, so 200, by the probability she'll win, and you get 126. Question 5. This comes up pretty much every time as well. It's a questionnaire. Right, and 2 things wrong with this question. The response boxes overlap, because if you buy 4 magazines, which box do you tick? That one or that one, for example. Do not just write boxes overlap, that's not good enough. Make it clear it's the response boxes that overlap. A couple other things I noticed. There's no time scale in the question, e.g. per week or per month. And there's also no option for more than 12. So if you buy 13 magazines, there's nothing to tick. So you've got to give 2 reasons. I've given 3. You just need to give 2 in the exam. Do a better one. Well, here we go. How many magazines do you buy per month? There's my time scale per month. And here's my option boxes: 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, or more than 7. When you do these middle ones, this is quite worth noting. Make sure you go up in equal steps. Because if you notice, I've gone 1 to 2, there's 2 in that one, 2 in that one, and 2 in that one. I've seen some people do 0, 1 to 5, 6 to 7, for example, but you've got to go up in equal steps. None of these boxes overlap, which is quite a good one, which is what you've got to do. Mason asked his friends to do the questionnaire at school. Why is this not a good sample to use? Give 1 reason Well, one reason is he needs to, the people he is asking would all be the same age. He needs to ask older and younger people. So that is a reason why it's not a good sample. Question number 6. This is filling up pots full of yogurt. A machine fills trays of 20 pots. So in each tray there's 20 pots with yogurt. In 1 hour the machine fills a total of 15,000 pots. Work out how many seconds the machine will take to fill each of the 20 pots. So each of the 20 pots, if I write that down, make a little note here, that is one tray. Step 1? How many trays are filled in 1 hour? So I've done 15,000 divided by 20, because there's 15,000 pots divided by 20, 15,000, divided by 20 gives you the number of trays, so it's 750. Step 2, how many seconds are in 1 hour? Because we're going to give the answer in seconds. 60 minutes times 60 seconds is 3,600 seconds. So 3,600 divided by how many trays you've got gives you 4.8 seconds per tray. That's quite a nasty one for quite early on, but if you show some workings, you should be able to get some marks for it. Question 7. Colin, Dave and Emma share some money. Colin gets 3/10 of it. Emma and Dave share the rest of the money in the ratio of 3 to 2. What is Dave's share? Well, if Colin gets 3/10, then Dave and Emma must share 7/10, because that's what's left over. So what I've done here, knowing that, I've written down the ratios here. So Emma and Dave 3 to 5, which is 3/5 to 2/5, because there's 5 parts altogether. He gets 3 out of 5. Oh, sorry, she gets 3 out of 5. He gets 2 out of 5. So Dave gets 2/5 of 7/10, which sounds complicated, but all it is 2/5 multiplied by 7/10, which gives you the answer there, one of those. The mark scheme said an answer of 28% is fine as well, which I suppose you could do, but I think this is using fractions is the simplest way to do it. Question 8. Diagram of a playground. It's asking us to calculate the amount of tarmac he needs and how much it's going to cost. But first of all, we're just going to work out the area. What I did, I've added this bit on here, these couple of lines, because it did look like that to start with. So it was a compound shape. You can cut it down here, then cut across, but it's a bit of a faff. So I worked out the area of the whole lot, so that's 80 by 60, which is 4,800. Then I worked out the area of this bit I've added on, because I'm going to take it off. So 30 times 40 divided by 2, because it's a triangle, so don't forget to divide by 2, it's 600. So 4,800, take away 600, is 4,200 metres squared. That's the area of the playground. If you've got that stage, that far, and you've put your units, you'll probably get 3 marks. Well, 2 at the least anyway. We're told in the question it costs £2.56 to cover each square metre. So 4,200 times £2.56 is £10,752. Question 9, angles here. The important thing here is to show all of your workings, and it says here at the bottom, give reasons for each stage of your workings. These questions are usually the worst done in the exam paper because students don't show their workings. So make it crystal clear, like I've done. This is all I've done for this question, so there's not loads of work involved in it. Angle X you want. Well, first of all, you can't do it straight away. You've got to do a few more bits and pieces. What could you find out? Well, you could find out this angle here, which I did, because there's 180 degrees in a triangle, which I've written there. There's my workings for it, so that's 55. Now, you notice that these 2 lines here are parallel, so you can use angles in parallel lines to work out this one. The answer is 55, because it's a Z angle. Z angle is an alternate angle, so make sure you use the word alternate angle, please. I'll show you where that Z is if you can't quite see it. It goes up here, down there, and along there. So this angle here is the same as this angle here. So the answer is 55 degrees. Make sure you give your reasons. Question number 10, trial and error. I'm just going to leave that there for you. X cubed, add 2x equals 110. Solution between 4 and 5. There you go. I always start off at 4.5 because it's in the middle. It was too low, or we'd make comments at the end. I tried 4.7, that was just too high, so you try the one below it, which is too low. It was quite close, this one, but 4.7 was the closest. Question 11. Work out the length of the long side of the triangle, XZ as they call it. Use Pythagoras. Don't use sine, cos and tan. You don't know any of the angles, apart from that's a right angle, so it's Pythagoras. A squared and B squared is C squared. A, B, and C is always the long side. I could have called that A and that B, but it doesn't really matter. There's my workings for it. It does say give your answer to 3 significant figures, so it's going to be 3.5 something, the 9 will round it up, so it's 3.52 is the final answer. Question 12, solving equations here. These ones aren't too bad. There's the top one. First of all, multiply out your bracket, so it's 3x take 6, because you're multiplying there. I always get rid of my negatives first, so I added 6 to both sides to get that. I want to get the x's on one side, so I got rid of my smallest x. So you're left with 2x is 13, so divide by 2, x is 6.5, or 6.5. Solve this next one. 2 take away y over 5 equals 1. You don't like having divides here, so just get rid of it. So to do that, you multiply both sides by 5, which I've done here. So then you're then left with 2 to take away y equals 5. Add y to both sides, because I don't like having that negative y. And you're left with 2 equals 5, add y, then take away 5, and you get y equals minus 3. It's a bit of a fiddly one, that, but just play around with it. Just practice what you know in terms of solving equations and rearranging formula, that sort of thing, and you should hopefully get to the answer in the end. If you don't believe you're correct, you can always check your answer at the end. So if y is minus 3, well, 2 take away minus 3 is 5, because take away and minus is a plus. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So you know if you got that one right or not. Question 13, coordinates. Got A is here, minus 1, 2, and B is here, 7, 5. Find the coordinates of the midpoint. This looks quite nasty, but it's not too bad. If you connected them up, you could probably see it's around here somewhere, but that's not really good enough. The easy way to find the midpoint is to add up your sets of coordinates. So minus 1, 2, 7, 5. Add them up. So minus 1 add 7 is 6, 2 add 5 is 7, then just half them. So almost like you're finding the mean average of each coordinate, if that makes sense. So 3, 3.5. Work out the P is at point minus 4, 4. And Q is at the point 1 minus 5. Work out the gradient of the line. Well, I've just drawn it down here to try and demonstrate. This is roughly minus 4, 4, and this is roughly 1 minus 5. To find the gradient, you do this length here divided by this length here to make a little triangle. So I've worked out if that goes from 4 there down to minus 5, it's 9. And it goes along from minus 4 to 1, which is 5. So it's 9 divided by 5, it's 1.8. But because it's going downhill this way, it is minus 1.8. It's a negative gradient. Positive gradients are ones that go up like that way. But this one's negative. Question 14. You've got to compare some investments in a bank. It's got a star next to it. The question, so you've got to show all of your workings. And this is simply all of my workings here. I'll talk you through it. The first one, International Bank, you get 4% for the first year. So £2,000 increased by 4%. That's the multiplier to increase by 4%. Remember, the 1 keeps it the same, and the 0.04 is the 4%. You get that. Then you get 1% for each extra year. So you times it by 1, keep it the same, 0.01, there's your 1%, you get that. And the Friendly Bank is 5% for the first year, so that's what I've done there. And 0.5% for each extra year. 0.5% is 0.005. That's a little bit fiddly, but if you know your decimal to percentages rules, you should be okay with it. So the Friendly Bank gives you more. I just as an aside to this question, and please don't write this in the exam, I did think, well, why couldn't you just invest it in the Friendly Bank for a year, then take it out, and the next day pay it back in, and I assume you can get 5% again because you can pretend it's your first year. But anyway, that's not the point. So the Friendly Bank is the better one. Next one, it is a quadratic graph. You've got to draw it. X squared take 2x. Well, I'll start from this end because positives are easier to deal with. x squared, so 4 squared is 16, take away 2 lots of 4, so 16 take away 2 lots of 4 is 8, 16 take 8 is 8. 2 squared is 4, 2 times 2, take away 2 lots of 2, so 4 take 4 is 0. 1 squared is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. Take away 2 lots of 1, which is 2, so 1 take 2 is minus 1. And I'll just briefly talk you through this one. Minus 2 squared is minus 2 times minus 2, which is 4. Take away 2x. Well, x is minus 2, so 2 lots of minus 2 is minus 4. So you're left with x squared, which we said was 4, take away minus 4. And that actually makes it into a positive. There's my graph. If you got that one wrong, by the way, your point would have been down here somewhere, and you've got to be able to recognise that that's clearly wrong. So the more you practice it, the better you'll get. When you draw your line, do it freehand. The mark scheme says the line must go through every point and follow the general trend. So that's that. Next one. Solve x squared, take 2x, take 2 equals 1. So this is what I've done. I've got, we're going to factorise it in a minute. So I've subtracted 1 from both sides to get equals 0. When you get to this stage, you can factorise it into double brackets. You need to think of 2 numbers that multiply together to make minus 3, but add together to make 2. Because there's only x squared, put your x and x in. The only 2 numbers that multiply to make minus 3 is, whole numbers, is 1 and minus 3. So you're going to go with, 1 and 3, because it could be the other way around. So how are you going to add up 1 and 3 to make minus 2? Well, you want negative 3 and a positive 1, which equals 0. When it says solve it, you've got to get this times this bracket to equal 0. For it to equal 0, one of these brackets must make 0, because anything times 0 is 0. So for this bracket to be 0, x must be 3. That's why x equals 3. Or for this bracket to be 0, x must equal minus 1, because minus 1 and 1 is 0. So the answers are x equals 3 or minus 1. Question 16. Circle theorems. There's a lot of writing I've done for this one, but I'll try and talk you through each of it, every part of it. You've got to give all your workings. It's got a star next to it, and it does say give reasons for your answer. I've probably written a little bit too much, but we'll see how we get on. First things first, even if you don't know circle theorems, just start looking at things you can work out. Hopefully you can spot that this is a right angle, and it's a right angle because you were told that PT is a tangent to the circle, and O to T must be the radius, because O is the centre and T is the outside. So that this makes a right angle because a tangent makes a right angle when it touches the radius of a circle. Once you know that's a right angle, you can work that one out. Angle Y, as I've called it angle Y, is 58. Because 180 take 90 take 32 equals 58, because there's 180 degrees in a triangle. I've worked out this angle up here is 122, because there's 180 degrees in a straight line. And I've written that down here. I've called it angle Z, but you can call it whatever you want, because there's 180 degrees on a straight line. And the last one here, this is where you've got to be a little bit clever. Because this is the radius, this line here, this is also the radius. So you've got a triangle here with 2 lines the same size, which makes it an isosceles triangle. So this angle and this angle must be the same. So if you do 180, take away 122, then half it, you'll get this angle and this angle here. I'll quickly show you my workings down the bottom. There you go. 180 take 122 divided by 2 is 29 degrees, because it is an isosceles triangle. Make sure you explain every bit of that question, because it's not too bad, but you will lose marks if you just scribble the answer down quickly. Question 17. Box plots. Draw it. Well, there you go. All done. That's your lowest value. That's your lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and highest value. 2 marks for that. Probably the easiest 2 marks in the paper. Compare the amount of money raised by the girls, because this is how much money girls raise for charity. This is how much boys raise for charity. So the question says compare them. I'll I'll read it out to you, then I'll actually show you what I've written. On average, the boys raised more money. Their median average was £32 compared to the girls' £25. So I've said on average the boys raised more, and I've justified it by saying what their median averages are. So you've got to do that. The range of the girls' money that they raised was £35. So ranges from the highest to the lowest. That's £35 compared to the boys, which was £42. This means that the amount of money the girls raised was more consistent. So what that means is the amount of money each girl raised was closer together with each other. The boys were a little bit more spread out. You can read that there if you like. Next one, question 18. Make P the subject of the formula. I'll just zoom in a little bit. There's all my workings for it. I will talk you through as usual. So we're going to get P on its own. So start untangling it. There's a -4 on this side, so you can get rid of that by adding 4. So there you go. P is being times by 3, then squared. If you're never sure how to do these, and a lot of people get confused about which one to do first. Do you remember the BIDMAS or BODMAS rule? Do that in reverse order. So it ends with subtraction, so get rid of any subtractions first. Then it's addition. No additions, great. BODM, there's multiplication, so undo your multiplication, so divide by 3, so there we go. There's no dividing, but there is an index number here, so now you've got to undo the index number, and to undo that you just square root both sides. So it looks nasty, but if you follow each step through you should be okay. A bit of factorising next. Here we go. Right, the top one. What is common in 6 and 9x? Well, 3. So it's 3 lots of 2, add 3x. This one I thought was nasty because it's got y squared. Some people try and put 1 on the outside of the brackets, then y squared takes 16. They won't accept that. What you've got to notice, and you only do this by practicing it, is 16 is a square number. So you can factorise it into double brackets. Y add 4, y take 4. Because there's your y squared. Your 4... Your 4 times -4 is -16, but your add 4y and take 4y will cancel. So you'll be left with y takes 16. The next one is a nasty one because there's a coefficient on the p squared. What I do is work out how to make 2, so by timesing. So 2 times 1. Then I work out how to make 10. What's either 10 times 1 or 2 times 5. Then I have a bit of a play around and think what's going to go together so I can make essentially -1 or 1. Well, you've got to go for 2 and 1 because they're the only choices you've got. So you've got to have 2p and p. You've got no choice. What are you going to connect them up with? Well, I worked out if you do 2 times 2, that gets 4. 1 times 5, that gets 5. If you've got a 4 and a 5, you can make a -1. Then you use those, then you play around with the positives and negatives to get one that works. If you want to check it, multiply it out, see if your answer is correct. Question 20. Okay, question 20. It's basically a trigonometry question. There's a bit of a backstory to it about a ladder and all the rest of it, but ignore that for the time being. Just treat it like trigonometry. First of all, you've got I always write this down. Some old hags carry a huge tub of ale. Then I label my sides. Hypotenuse is the long side, opposite is opposite the angle, and adjacent is the other one. Which 2 sides am I interested in, or do I know? Well, I know the hypotenuse and the adjacent. Hypotenuse and adjacent, I'm going to use cos. Let's work our numbers through. Cos y, because you cos the angle, is adjacent, which is 2.25, over the hypotenuse, which is 6. So cos y is 2.25 over 6. There's the answer. Don't forget, because you're finding an angle, you'll need to use the inverse button on your calculator, or the second function, or depending on what calculator you've got. I've rounded it here to 2 decimal places, because that's a bit of a faff. The question says, this angle here, a ladder is safe to use when angle marked y is about 75 degrees. Is the ladder safe to use? You must show all your workings. Well, I think basically what they're after is you to get to this answer and then make a little comment. The mark scheme says no, the ladder is not safe to use because it is not near 75 degrees. Personally, if I was in an exam answering this, I'd say that's 68, and I'd say yes, the ladder is safe to use because 68 isn't that far away from 75 really. But I think as long as you show your workings and you get to this bit and make a comment at the end, one way or another, I think you'll be fine. Question 21. This is stratified sampling. What you've got to do is work out how many students you've got altogether. So that's why I've added them up. Work out the number of students from Key Stage 3 should be in the sample, which is 460 students are in Key Stage 3. So you do 460 divided by 945, and you multiply it by how many students you want in your sample. So in this case you want 100, so it's 460 over 945 multiplied by 100. You can't have 48.677 students unless you use a chainsaw or what have you, which you not have to do these days. So round it up to 49 students. Again, show your workings for that. Next one, proportionality. This always comes up, and it's actually not too bad. Here's all my workings. I'll just try and talk you through it. It says H is inversely proportional to the square of R, which sounds complicated, but if I show you the workings, it's not too bad. So when R is 5, H is 3.4, find the value of H when R is... Okay. This is the sort of magic formula for inverse proportionality. It says H is inversely proportional, so equals, K means constant. I'm not quite sure why it's not C, but anyway, K is a constant, and it's divided by R squared, because it says the square of R. So I'll put the numbers in here. So this is just the numbers I'm giving at the top, look. Because I'm trying to find out what K is. 5 squared is obviously 25. How do you go from here to here? We multiply both sides by 25 to get K on its own, and K is 85. So then what you do is come over here, you know K is 85, so put that in. You know R is 8, because that's what it's saying, and it says find the value of H. So you do it like that. Don't forget 8 squared is 64, so it's 85 over 64, gives you 1.33 to 2 decimal places. That's how you do that one. It's worth practicing those. They come up pretty much every time. Question 23. Bounds. Again, these don't come up as much as they should do, I don't think, but we'll go through it anyway. I'll read the question out. Dan does an experiment to find the value of pi. He measures the circumference and the diameter of a circle. He measures the circumference, which is C, as 170 millimetres to the nearest millimetre. That's important, to the nearest millimetre. He measures the diameter, D, as 54 millimetres to the nearest millimetre. And Dan uses pi as circumference divided by diameter, which obviously is a reworking of the formula to find the circumference, which is pi times diameter. Anyway, to find the value of pi. Calculate the upper and lower bounds. So what you've got to do is, I'm going to do the upper bound first. So you've got to put numbers in here. That gives you the highest answer. To get the highest answer, you need the highest possible value of C. So if it's 170, the highest possible value, because it's to the nearest millimetre, is 170.5. And you need the lowest value of D, which is 53.5. And you get that. And on the other one, you want the lowest value of C and the highest possible value of D, which is there. And there are your 2 answers. I've rounded them off to 2 decimal places. It doesn't specify to do that, but I've shown them that's what I've done. Question 24. Here's a triangle. Work out the area of the triangle. Give your answer to 3 significant figures. At the front of the exam paper, there's this formula. The area of a triangle is half times A times B times sine C. I've not gone about labelling these because there's another question in a minute that you've got to use the same things for. Let's say A is this side here, B is this side here, so C would be the top, so that means this will be angle C. So I've done half times 6 times 7 times sine 60, which is, there's the answer. Round it to 3 significant figures, so it's 18 point, and the 8 rounds it up to a 2, so 18.2. Just 2 marks for that, which I thought was a little bit stingy, but then again you are only putting numbers into a formula, so I guess it's just substitution. Underneath, work out the length of the side A, B, give your answer to 3 significant figures. So you either want to use the sine rule or the cosine rule. You don't use the sine rule, because to use that, the A over sine A, B over sine B, C over sine C, you have to know the angle and an opposite side. and there's none of these, we know the angle and the opposite side. So we're going to use the cosine rule. There's my numbers there. I'm going to skip down the bottom here so you can see my workings. And there they are. That's the cosine rule. A squared equals b squared add c squared, take 2bc cos a. I'll let you work through the answers, my workings there. You've got to be a little bit careful about how you label up your triangle. You need to know angle A and sides B and C. So I've sort of relabeled it in my own head. This would be side B and C, so that would be side A. So that would make that angle A. Question 25. This is the last one. Solve the simultaneous equations. Right, here it is, and I've written out a bit bigger so you can see it. And give your answer to 2 decimal places. That's important. We'll come back to discuss that in a moment. You've got to substitute stuff in. You can't do the adding up or the taking aways here because you've got x and y squared. So what I've done is this. On the bottom one, we've got x add y equals 2. I've rearranged it to get x on its own. And I've done that by taking y off each side. So you're left with x equals 2, take away y. I want to put in what x squared is. Now if x is 2 take y, x squared will be 2 take y times 2 take y, i.e. timesing it by itself. So here is what I've done. So you're left with x squared equals, and I've simplified it, y squared, take 4y, add 4. I've done a little arrow, substitute this in for the value of x. So if you do that, replace x squared with all of this, because this is what x squared is, so y squared, take 4y, add 4, here you go. Y squared, take 4y, add 4, add y squared, equals 9. Simplify it a little bit because you've got 2 lots of y squared, so it's 2y squared, take 4y, add 4 equals 9. I'm going to take 9 off both sides and you're left with this. Now you have to use this, solve this using the quadratic formula, and you need to know that because it does say give your answer to 2 decimal places. So you can't just factorise it because it just won't work. So this is the flag to use the quadratic formula. I'll leave that up there and I'll briefly talk you through it. I mean, if you can either do it or you can't do it. Label it A2 is A, minus 4 is B, and minus 5 is C. This is written in the front of your exam paper. Substitute your numbers in, show your workings, and get a positive and a negative value at the end. Don't forget, because at the top they're both this basically, you can x and y, you'll never know. They could be the, when I say they could be the same, I've worked out the 2 possible values of x is 2.87 and minus 0.87, but that could also flip around as well, if you see what I mean, because there's x squared and there's a y squared and there's an x and a y. So it's not like it's 3x and just 2x. They're both the same in each one. So you can flip the values over. So there you go. I'll put the grade boundaries up in a minute, but it's usually about 70 for an A, 50 for a B, 30-ish for a C. I hope you did well.